That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
We're moving on to trade talk quite quickly, and this week we have Zorro Year 1, The Trial of the Fox. And yes, it is Zorro Year 1 in more ways than one. Excuse me as I remove the dust jacket. And it's a pretty slick actual cover there. So this is actually based on a novel. I need to find... Wait, is it on the back here? No. Inspired and dedicated to the works of Zorro creator Johnston McCulley and visionary author Isabel Allende, legendary writer Matt Wagner brings the thrilling tale of Zorro to life as never before. No, that's not what I want. Basically, Elizabeth Allende wrote a novel called Zorro, and it's Zorro's origin story. And I have something different entirely in my head about Zorro's origin, but this is not bad on its own. So the idea is that Zorro is a half... What's the word that they use? There's a word the Spanish had for it. Oh, fuck. Anyway, the Spanish had a word for if you were born of an Indian and a Spanish person, and they had distinctions between which was the mother and which was the father and all that stuff. There's a very very strict hierarchy in Spanish society, and so Diego is half Native American and half Spanish, and so that's interesting. That's well developed, and the idea of this is that we're getting Diego from childhood to when he goes into California and really starts becoming Zorro and becomes the Diego de la Vega, the pomp, the socialite that we're familiar with in most versions. But throughout we're intercut with his activities as Zorro and how he's disrupting the people or the operations of the soldiers and the Spanish crown. Like the first 2 pages are excuse me. The first 2 pages are soldiers having a conversation about Zorro, or about the legend who would become Zorro, and then we see the flashback of what happened to the soldiers and what happens with Diego remembering a woman getting whipped by soldiers and his father telling him about how he must act, and then we get more stuff with the story of that the soldier was telling in the beginning with what happened to him and his comrade on the road, and it all goes on and on and on. Bernardo and Diego go out on a spirit quest, and Diego's spirit guide is the fox, which is kind of cool. But yeah, just it kind of goes on, and we have a great last page of this opening issue with a guy showing the mark of Zorro on his hand there. But as the book goes on, we have Diego outclassing his father's capabilities, which makes him consider that he'll have to send him to Spain, and their home gets invaded by pirates, and they end up raping and killing Bernardo's mother and killing Zorro's mother. And so this prompts Alejandro to send Diego to Spain earlier than he probably would have otherwise, because it hurts him to see his son, because it reminds him so much of his mother. And then we get more intercut stuff, blah, blah, blah. And so Zorro's time in Spain is handled really, really well, and he's learning all these things, and he fights for a gypsy woman, and he's learning sword fighting, but he fights to save gypsy woman and tells this to his instructor. And here we get to a part that I really didn't care for in the story, which after he tells his instructor what he did for the gypsy woman, his instructor brings him to this secret society that has existed in Spain since the Inquisition to help hide the oppressed and help protect them, and they exist completely in secret. No one ever speaks of them. And I really didn't like that idea of Diego becoming a member of this hidden society, and that's where he gets the inspiration to really fight for the oppressed and become... I mean, it's not that that's the only place. He gets to be a part of the society because he helped fight for the oppressed already, and he's always wanted to. We clearly see from when he's a child, but I just don't like that that's where he gets part of it from. I don't... It's too Batman Begins for me, and the run was coming out in 2008, and so the book came out probably a couple years earlier, so there's a very heavy influence of Batman Begins there, and that's just too much over the line for me. It works for Batman in a way I don't think it works for Zorro, and they really are very, very how do I put this? They're very intentionally making it feel like Batman, and I like that. I mean, you know, Batman's a character that borrowed from a lot of places and used that to evolve, and so I don't have a problem with the characters he borrowed from, if we're going to continue writing those, for them to borrow from him and keep going back and forth like that. That's fine. Things can feed into each other. But the notion of making Zorro literally Mexican Batman is a little too far for me. Even the way they draw Zorro in this book several times, like this is a cover, but even the way they draw him makes him look kind of like Batman in a lot of ways. I thought this page was funny. This is the first time that they put a wanted poster up for Zorro, as we get the flashbacks to the modern day stuff. And that poster underneath it, you can see it right there. There. It says Francesco Francella, who is the artist on the book. I thought that was really, really clever to do. So he put himself in there, which is pretty funny. But no, there's a lot of... It feels very much like a Nolan Batman or a Nolan Zorro movie, because there is a lot of back and forth between time, and that part of it I don't mind. I just don't like the idea that he becomes a member of this secret society thing, and that part bothers me. Then there's this weird issue with the I don't know if I'd call it weird, but it does feel a little forced. Basically, Diego and Bernardo get word from Alejandro that, like, the situation in California is going to shit and blah, blah, blah. And so they get on the next boat out, and after a couple months at sea, the boat is attacked by pirates. And the pirates just, honestly, it's such a weird scene. The battle was fierce and short-lived. Most sailors are not professional fighters and have little or no skill when it comes to armed engagement. Within an hour, Diego and I were the only survivors of the San Sebastian. And so they killed numerous pirates, a feat mostly unappreciated by the pirates themselves. They killed numerous pirates, the only two survivors, and then the leader of the pirates tells them that he's letting them free, and he puts them on a little escape boat or a little rowboat, and they row away. And I mean, they certainly could have died from that, and I don't have a problem with how they survived that side of the ordeal, but it is the most random thing, and it helps build into Diego showing back up in California a little bit later. But it's really awkward to me. I don't know, that scene just feels unnecessary because, let's see here. 1, 2, 3 pages and it's done. And then it has effects on the rest of the story, but it's weird that it's over so quickly. It almost feels like a producer was like, no, we need an action scene right here. So they put in pirates. I just feel like you could have done this more easily. Like, instead of pirates, it would have made more sense to have the ship, like, go through a storm and get shipwrecked or something. And so then they would have had to board the rowboat and try to escape and survive on the sea in that way, if you wanted to still keep the element of of Diego's eventual return to California being in rags as opposed to in proper clothes and with all his stuff and everything. Though there is one really weird, like, I suppose you only lose one thing, but you could have had him learn this literally anywhere else. The pirate king, the captain that lets Diego and Bernardo go, says, or Diego asks him, I have never saw someone wear a cloak into battle before. Aren't you worried about getting tangled in its length? And the captain says, haha, but you misunderstand its purpose. Enswathed in these folds, my body is hidden from my enemies' aim, either the tips of their blades or the sights of their guns. Yeah, it's just something I don't feel like you needed to have Diego get it from a pirate, or he could have gotten it from, one of the sailors. Like, there's that great episode there's that great moment in the first episode of the Guy Williams show where he's fighting with one of the crewmen, and it's just something they did to pass time. And you could have had him learn it from that guy. That could have been useful. Like, you could have reenacted that where Diego learns it from that guy before they get shipwrecked. I just don't feel like the pirates thing was necessary, because there's such a big part of the story in the beginning with how they kill off Bernardo's mother and Diego's mother, that it's weird that they just end up, you have the return of pirates and they aren't necessary to the plot at all, because there are easier ways that you could have done what you needed to in the story and made it felt more realistic, because it's hard to believe that they just happen to get, a good pirate that lets them go. But anyway, so Diego and Bernardo are able to make landfall and survive on the prairie and through the desert as they return to California. And then when they go to the house, soldiers are guarding the hacienda of the De La Vega name, and they won't let him in, and they call him an Indian, and they tell him to get lost, and so they go back to the tribe of their mothers, and find out that Diego's grandmother has passed in the time that he's been gone to Spain, but she left him a map to gold, and it's hidden within this cave structure. So that's where they make, Zorro's cave and everything. And they're able to get Tornado, who looks perfect. Tornado is just a wild stallion, which is really cool. That only Zorro and Bernardo together are able to calm and thus be able to ride. Kind of goes on. But so then it's the final issue, or second to last issue rather, where Diego returns to the house looking like he should, like they expect Diego to look, but even playing that up more, like freshly returned from Spain, and he's the classic rich pompous Diego that doesn't have the stomach for the heat and yada yada yada. And so there's a lot of great stuff with that, and he talks with his father, and his father's of course disappointed in him because Diego puts on an air that he instead of coming home the second his father asked, or the second he received his father's letter, he went night clubbing and everything in Spain for a couple months more, and he'd been using the money his father was sending him for fencing lessons to, buy expensive carriages and everything. And so that's what hurts him the most. And there's actually a really good line there. I shouldn't have skipped over it. Oh, where did it go? So after his father leaves the room, as his father leaves the room, he says, "You will excuse me for the rest of the evening, Diego. I suddenly feel ill to my stomach." And that's, in regards to how disappointed he is in Diego. And Diego gets up and is like, "That was so much harder than I imagined." Lying to his father's face and pretending to be, this weakling, this coward to his father, really hurt him. And so it's, then it goes to his first night, not his first night as Zorro, but his first night as Zorro as, getting information as Diego and then going out as Zorro and stuff. And then we get our first full Zorro issue where it's nothing but Zorro doing stuff, and he goes and saves a priest and fights this sergeant that's corrupt and everything. And the sergeant has this really nasty cut right down the front of his face, or scar down the front of his face, and so Zorro carves right on the side of it to give him that mark forever right in front of everybody. And Zorro's able to save the prisoners that shouldn't be there, and the priest and everything. And he rides off into the full moon, chased by soldiers, just like Zorro's meant to do. And then we get some really cool covers. Some of them better than others. Some of them kind of looking like Alex Ross drawings. I don't like this one because that seriously looks like Batman in a Zorro costume to me. It's too white guyish. I have no problem with Zorro being played by a white man since he's from Spain, or he's Spanish, but he should still have a proper tan because he's lived in California so long. But it looks a little Alex Rossi there. And there's some cool stuff. It is just a really cool issue. And then there's some cool graphic novel, whatever, origin story. And then there's some sketches in the back that outline, what they were going for design-wise. And there is even a Zorro. Our version resembles two famous characters he inspired: Batman, the Shadow. So that's really what they were going for. And they mentioned that it's a cloak, not a cape, so that you have the arms still part of it and everything. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. It does show a really good first half of Zorro's origin, and I got the second volume sitting over there. I'll pick that up too. That should be next week's video if time allows at work and everything. But I was really happy with this, and I was pretty impressed with it. But I figured I'd take the opportunity to just talk about what I would do with the Zorro origin, since, I'm only half an hour in. That seems like I got plenty of time. Because there are things I like about this. I really like the idea of telling the origin in that Nolan style of Batman Begins, where we go past, future, relate thematically, stuff like that. I thought that was a pretty clever thing to do, and I was pretty happy with that. But it's not at all what I would do with Zorro. Just because, I enjoy a lot of the ideas, but ultimately I think it kind of misses an opportunity with the character that I don't see. It's weird because I think this has been done to death, but at the same time I feel like it could be done really well with Zorro and in a really unique way. So let me just talk about it. So most versions of Diego de la Vega Oh shit, Danny, what the hell, man? He was attacking himself in the mirror. I was wondering what the hell the sound was. Shh, calm down. Alright, he's really excited right now, so we'll just leave him be. Yeah, that beard is black, buddy. Anyway, so, most versions of Diego de la Vega have him where he pretends to be this ignorant party socialite, this man of books that, you know, all his time is spent just reading books and everything. I would actually have that be him. I would have Diego de la Vega be completely